Welcome back to the Max Your Dash podcast. Thank you for listening, liking, and now watching. I'm your host, Steve. We're here with Nate. The gang is back. Mark's back from his maternity leave.
Paternity leave.
Maternity. This is the number one personal finance podcast in the entire world. We're back. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And our stands are
on the side.
Right what's here. That now? Oh, on the side here. Yeah, well, these guys. Let's ride. Thank you. Okay. We're here. We're doing it. So yeah, guys, why don't you explain what's going on with these water bottles?
Hydrogen water.
Quick plug.
Echo Go.
This isn't a sponsor.
I'm not gonna. This is not a sponsor, although that'd be fun to get sponsored by. But just go listen to Gary Brecka. Go listen to the Ultimate Human podcast, and you'll learn what these are all about.
Why does yours look red?
It needs to be charged.
You're kidding. You're drinking battery water.
Oh, no. The battery that, well, yeah, I guess.
You have to recharge the bottom.
Ooh, is it like a USB?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, USB-C.
You got a chart. Wait, so
it's got a sticker on it.
He knows it's like one of those label makers.
I put a label on it so we're not drinking out of the same bottle.
We are not only committed to your financial health, we're committed to your physical health as well.
You know, Adam always brings up that we need to have like real partners, like because maxing your dash isn't just about having strong finances. It's about being happy, which could be like mental health. It could be physical health. It could be a lot of things. Like maybe we should talk about that more.
We should, 100%. Why not? I think.
You guys want to talk about ivermectin or something like that too?
What's that? What about ashwagandha? All the vitamins? Is that part of the vitamin supply?
No, ivermectin was like the Joe Rogan, when he was talking about like certain COVID treatments, but then they started calling it what? Horse dewormer or whatever. Yeah.
Horse dewormer.
Nice.
All right, we just lost 50% of the listeners.
Yeah. We're just kidding about that.
No, that's a great conversation. All right, Max Your Dash moments. We all got some good ones. Mark, why don't you start out? You got an easy one.
I had a kid.
Get another one.
Carmela was born on 2/12. I have that tattooed on my body as well from 10 years ago.
You have 2/12 tattooed on your body? Oh yeah. Not the date. Okay, interesting.
What are the odds?
That is crazy.
That works out well.
That is crazy.
Except for there's a degree sign on there.
Yeah, but no one needs to know.
How's she doing?
You look. I mean, it's
a battle. Yeah. I feel pretty good. We had a good night's sleep last night.
Do you feel like the second kid is what you expected from a difficulty standpoint, harder than you expected?
I didn't expect Enzo to be so much harder as a result of having the second kid. That's been, to me, the biggest shock.
So you would say it's harder than you expected?
Yeah. Just different, though. Like, I was like, just planning for what we already went through. Mm-hmm. But it's that, plus Enzo isn't, like, he's getting a lot better. I will give him some credit, but
he's a terrorist.
It's been a lot.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's a good segue to what we're talking about. Mark is going through exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not doing well.
No. Yes. We are in the thick of it.
The unrecorded part of this podcast.
Right, exactly. The unedited. What about you, Nate?
We're just coming in. We just got home 2 days ago from a little family vacation. We went down to Disney World. It was my first time ever to Disney World in my life. Grayson, in 2 years of being alive, has traveled more than I ever did before I was 22.
In Florida twice. Was those the first two times? No, you've been there before.
So Disney World was cool. Animal Kingdom is, shout out Animal Kingdom. Let's get them on the sponsor of the pod. That place is incredible.
Is it? Did you go to Harry Potter World? Is that in Disney, or is that a Disney movie?
It might be at Universal.
Is it Universal?
He wouldn't have went to that.
No, I forgot.
No.
You're not gonna let Grayson watch Harry Potter?
At Animal Kingdom, there's a whole section for the Avatar. I didn't go to that, which I guess is supposed to be
Avatar's
the coolest part. But no, yeah, we did that trip. It was really great. It really was. Grayson was a champ. We were good on every flight, good overall, and we had a great time.
Nice. Shout out Seneca Park Zoo for all their sleeping animals.
What time did you go again?
Oh God, we got there at we didn't end up getting there until like 11:45.
Well, dude, that's your problem. Who's going to the zoo at 11:45 on a Tuesday?
Well, you would think that'd be the best time to
How
go.
much
If
is
makes
it to
you feel
go?
any better, all of the big cats at Animal Kingdom were also sleeping
Okay.
when we went through there.
They're probably supposed to be in Africa.
I think you got to
safari.
hit them first thing in the morning or
Yeah.
like at last light. They're probably more.
I don't
active.
like the zoo.
Dude, so news to you. I'm a member of the zoo. So, and so is Adam. We're the zoo crew.
You get
can
a punch
go-
card?
You can go early before 10 o'clock. It opens at 10. You can go early as a zoo member.
How
So-
much earlier?
I don't know.
Can you go
Adam,
like
you know?
6
Is the zoo just Seabreeze just with no rides?
It's a zoo, dude. You ever been to a zoo?
Never been to the zoo.
Oh, yeah. You go there and you see a bunch of animals that are drugged up and laying down.
I don't like
And-
that.
Like, literally,
Dude,
like, we went to
the
the
coolest thing about Animal Kingdom is like it is not like a zoo.
Yeah.
They're like it is giant open spaces that they roam, and the forage.
So
of
it's
the
like a
place,
safari. Like,
there's literally the safari ride is literally feels like you're in a
Yeah,
safari.
that's
It's this
cool.
giant,
Yeah,
that's cool.
huge area that the animals are just frolicking
yeah.
in.
No. You're
And,
seeing, you're literally at Seneca Park Zoo, you're seeing animals on their last leg of life in a pretty terrible environment.
You're making it sound really
Dude,
depressing.
Yeah.
like the elephants, their husks are like filed off and they're like this long. Like, you're telling me that's what they're supposed to look like?
Yeah, that's why it sucks.
Well, yeah, but no, it is. I will say, like, when you go and you have a good experience there, it is really cool.
Like
The only time, I went to the
Zoo
zoo
Brew.
when we did annual meeting because you go to the
Yeah,
we went to the
Milwaukee Zoo.
Milwaukee Zoo. That one was okay,
That zoo is actually pretty legit. That's
Yeah.
a pretty big zoo.
but you get booze there.
Right. So Zoo Brew, which is not what I would go to with Enzo, but
I
that's
remember.
kinda
I
cool.
remember
That's
the
fun.
lions were like roaring when we
yeah,
went to that.
Zoo Brew was fun.
But Animal Kingdom, you got it. That's a bucket
Yeah.
list.
All right, Disney World, check. Disneyland, whatever it's
Would you-
called,
would
even though
you-
you
what have
don't
you been
watch
up to?
Disney stuff.
What have you been up to?
I've been up to most of my stuff is like
He's not been playing Monopoly Go. I
the
know
only
that.
time I know. Shout out Monopoly Go. Phil had another little event for his wedding that I went to. I always use those as Max Your Dash because it just gives me I don't really often see my friends in real life unless we all have to go to something, and that was something. It was cool seeing some of my friends getting out of the house. Kind of like a homebody, so I don't really get to socialize much, but that was fun. We'll have a couple of them. We're doing Dune 2. That'll be fun. That'll be a Max Your Dash moment. Shout out Dune 2. We like to have fun around here.
Yeah, now you're gonna watch Dune 1 or no?
You have to. You're not going to the movie without watching it.
Oh, bud. There's a lot of things I'd like you to do that you don't do.
What is it? What's the opening line of the movie? It's
the
like
difference between hunting a deer and going to watch a movie.
what is the opening line? Is like dreams or
Bowling.
messages from the deep. Is that what they say when it opens?
Because he's a prophet.
Well, like I'm saying, as soon as the movie starts, it's like they in a weird sound.
Yes, and now
Yeah.
and now it starts out differently in this one. You gotta watch the first one. You're gonna be lost. You're gonna be asleep. Don't even. Yeah. Whatever. It's gonna be fun.
Let's
I
get
mean
into
it when
it.
I say this. I'm eating an entire bucket of popcorn.
Have you seen the special buckets they give you?
No.
It's a sandworm.
Oh,
And you
this
gotta
is
put your hand in
fantastic.
it. It's kind of cool.
This is awesome.
I'm getting everything.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be great. All right, we're going to today's topic. You're gonna see obviously the title of this, but today we're gonna be talking about how to win your money life in your 30s and 40s. So this is for all the young families out there who probably feel very stressed financially, like Mark, perfect, or anyone who's a young family.
There's 3 of us in this room.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about what are those stresses, how can you mitigate it, stuff like that. But everyone's mind probably goes to the same thing from a financial perspective. But we
It
have
just
a lot
doesn't
of
work.
we have a lot of clients in that age range, so we have a lot of experience in this.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, we're going to drop some good knowledge on you guys. What would we do in your shoes? And we are in your shoes, or at least 3 of you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, is you guys obviously being financial advisors, but also being in that 30 to 40 young family time frame, what is the biggest struggle financially? Why do you think most young families are struggling financially? And there's an obvious answer here.
Well, for me, it'd be daycare. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
Well, I've been finding myself asking the question, like 2 questions. One, how does the vast majority of people actually do this? How do they actually afford this? Because it seems impossible. And the second one is how did they used to afford this with a lot more kids, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when people were having 3-4 kids a lot more consistently. And so,
Well, the cost of care has probably just increased.
well, yeah, and like you had a lot of times 30, 40 years ago, there was one working spouse and the other person stayed home. So that's probably part of the answer, which just also seems unrealistic today because things are so expensive. So you really need dual income.
Yep.
But yeah.
I think it's like this convergence of a couple of things that have happened. Daycare being one of them. Is like a daycare. I don't even know did it exist 30 years ago. Like people probably paid a babysitter, but were these like legit daycare facilities like a thing? So you have that, but you also have like a lot. So if you take I don't know, what do you think is the average age that like people have young children that are in daycare, like young 30s?
Yeah, now it's probably like late 20s.
Yeah. So let's say you're 30 years old.
Yeah.
If you're 30 years old today and you have a child or two, you also probably still have student loans.
Yeah.
Which that's another thing that 50 years ago didn't really exist.
Mm-hmm.
You have student loans, you have daycare expense, and you have a mortgage probably if you were lucky enough to buy a house before things got crazy. So like those
probably
3 things
vehicle,
eat up so
you probably
much.
had to get a bigger vehicle.
And then you have all those normal living expenses that have always existed.
Yeah.
So you have, and by the way, if you bought a house recently, you're paying at all-time highs not all-time high interest rates, but very, very high interest rates. So your mortgage payment is 2x what it was 4 or 5 years ago. So it's all of these things that have happened at once that makes it, I think, really challenging for a young family to get by on their cash flow.
Right. Yeah, it's the cash flow being eaten up by more, but it really is, I feel like, the daycare costs on top of the student loans and mortgage is just crazy. Because what is it, like $1,500 a kid, I guess?
So mine is, starting in June or July, I don't remember when Carmela goes, but it'll be $3,200 a month for just the daycare. So I figured
$3,200. Wow.
Yeah. So I figured $4,200 a month all in for kids.
Dude, that is.
Where's the other 1,000? Like for food and
so
stuff?
diapers, food,
Right.
Wipes, medicine.
That is
and
one
activities.
person's after-tax monthly paycheck.
Well, that's like
So
if
for
you
you-
figure have an average household. Let's say you got they're bringing in $120,000. Married couple bringing in $120,000. If you got 2 kids in daycare, you can almost say nearly half, if not half, of their income goes straight to that.
Right.
And then now you talk about the student loans, you talk about the mortgage payment, the car payment. Then you got to eat yourself.
It's tough.
Yep.
It's
tough.
I just don't understand how they.
And I think, and the reason we wanted to do this episode is because we're living in this, and a lot of our clients are in this situation. But there is optimism to this, which I'm prepared to talk about.
Yeah.
You're not prepared to talk about.
When we were doing the prep, you said the big thing is for our listeners who are in the situation, it is a temporary.
It's a temporary
situation.
problem. But it could be really easy in your mind to have kind of like a F attitude, because it is really tough, and it's definitely, and there's other problems, right? Like, so let's say let's say you guys decided, I'm just going to use you and Lindsay in your household. Let's say you decided, Lindsay, okay, you know what, like, you're going to not work so that we don't have this daycare expense. Well, now you also just put your spouse career behind by how many years?
Yeah.
And that's a whole other thing that creates so it's a very difficult time. And the reality is, though, when we compare it to like our parents or whatever, or we go back 40 years where there was one spouse. Well, in that situation, it wasn't necessarily better. You were living on one income. Whereas today you're living on 2 incomes, but it feels crappy because the expense number is so much higher than it used to be.
Yeah.
But from a net cash flow perspective, it's not necessarily harder, probably. Sure. Maybe it is. I don't really know. But it's not like from a net cash flow standpoint that much more challenging. It's always been kind of challenging to raise a family from a financial perspective.
Yeah.
Because, and we're, obviously if you make $700,000 a year, you don't care about this topic,
right.
But there is light at the end of the tunnel, which we'll get into today.
Yeah. So what are the things that people can be doing then to get through this temporary situation? Make it better. So it's something that like I really like nerd out on when
with clients in this situation, I preach all the time, like we have to, every dollar has to have a job. Every dollar has to have a job. And when I say that, I also mean your future dollars. Mm-hmm. And so cash flow planning is a huge part of what we do. Like, I feel like we get into the weeds on cash flow more than most people did. And I'm just talking about myself in the history of my career. Like, I did not forecast 5 years of cash flow.
Yeah.
7 years ago. And why that's so important is that daycare expenses, student loan expenses, mortgage payments are all temporary expenses. They do go away eventually. When your kids go to, what age do kids go to elementary school? It's like 4 or 5.
5, I think.
Right. So when you're in the thick of it, and they're one, how old's Enzo's 2, mm-hmm. and Carmelo? So you've got how many years of this?
5 more.
5 more years, right? So for the next 5 years, things are going to feel tough. But then after that, you just freed up $3,600 a month.
Right.
And then if you have student loan debt, maybe that's dropping off in 3 years too. Yeah. Now that just freed up maybe $600 a month, right? And then somewhere down the road, you might not have a mortgage, and that frees up a lot of money. And if you have a plan for those dollars in advance, and you start to like model out the impact that can have on the rest of your life, it gets really exciting.
You're saying a plan for the dollars that eventually aren't going to daycare, mortgage, student loans, when that stuff is gone. What are you doing with those dollars?
Investing them.
What does it look like?
Yeah, so we created a little scenario. I just kept it real basic. I said, and my daycare expense is about $1,000 a month. So I figured in this case we used Jim Halpert and Pam Beasley. And they have 2 kids going to daycare. One's 2 years old, one's 1. And I just assumed each kid is $1,000 a month for daycare. Mm-hmm. So $2,000 a month is going out the door in daycare expenses until they're 5. So I assume they can't save $1 other than they're putting a little bit into their 401ks. I think in the scenario it's 6% into their 401ks. When that daycare expense drops off, so in 3 or 4 years from now, if you took 75% of the money that you were putting towards daycare, now why I said 75 is because maybe you want a little bit of a lifestyle upgrade.
And they probably still cost some money, right? There's maybe you got some
there's going to be
school care,
club, sports, whatever. I don't know. But if you took 75% of those dollars when that expense drops off and you start investing that just in a joint investment account. So we could get way more creative with this stuff by using Roth IRAs or putting it in your 401k and taking advantage of tax advantage stuff. The impact at retirement for this person, and by the way, the assumption here is that Jim and Pam are 37 years old and they want to retire at 65. So we're talking about almost 30 years from now. If you save 75% of those dollars, you would increase your portfolio by $1.2 to $1.3 million at retirement when you're 65.
If you just repurpose the daycare dollars.
Yep. And then that takes your in this case, and we don't need to get into the weeds on all the assumptions that are in this, but it takes that particular couple from a really low chance of hitting retirement to fully covered.
Right.
Just by the 75% of daycare. I didn't do what about their student loan expense dropping off and then repurposing those dollars too. We didn't get creative with, like I said, maybe they should be maxing out their 401k first before the joint account. Because of tax advantages that exist there.
So what do you think people do after that falls off? Like, what do you think people do with those dollars then?
Normally?
Yeah.
Spend them.
Yeah.
They definitely, if you don't have a plan for it, when you get that raise, what do most people do? They're going to probably save a little bit of it, but not.
And this is only accounting for 75% of the $2,000.
Yeah. So in our world as financial advisors, like, when a client comes to us in this situation, they might not be able to literally invest a single extra dollar for the next 4 years. But when that drops off, we're going to have a plan for that money. And the key is like, we put that on their financial plan recommendations. And every time we meet and review with them, we're bringing that up that, hey, by the way, when this happens, we're going to save 75% of it. And this is the impact it's going to have. And now there's accountability around it. So that when that day actually comes, it's like exciting for them. Oh my God, we finally made it to this point where we can start investing those dollars.
Right.
And it makes a massive impact. And one of the things that's kind of cool from a human behavior standpoint is if you're paying daycare for 5 years, you're so used to that money going out the door.
Right.
So you've adjusted your lifestyle to that.
Buying a Lambo as soon as I get that.
You've adjusted you have the habit already of that money going somewhere else, so it's just not hard to like repurpose those dollars. And I've seen this actually. I can think of a client right now that was in this position, and I remember the day that they crossed that threshold, and they're crushing it now financially because they got through that, and they actually started saving it, and they just feel you could see it like I can literally visibly see the difference in their confidence of how they feel today financially versus when their kids were in daycare.
Yeah. So you're essentially saying, tell them that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
There is.
But you have to have that plan.
You got to have that plan. Yep.
For where those dollars are going to go and why they're going to go.
Right.
Now, this is what I also feel like some people are stressed about, like in that 5-year time period or whatever, because like it might be longer than that because the one kid goes to elementary school and they have another kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
If you're Ambo, every 18 months you're probably out.
Yeah, if you're Ambo, you're down.
By the way, if you've got 3 kids, 4 kids. No.
Since we're all about max your dash and living your life, how do you think people can best go about like during that time frame still being able to do the things they want to do? Because they might feel like I can't do anything, I'm stressed cash flow wise, and like the answer could be like just track your budget and have a plan for it, I guess. But like that's a big piece. Like, okay, that's great, in 5 years I'll be able to save this money and I'll be back on track for retirement. But like at the end of the day, you still want to be able to do the things you want to do even for that little period of time. What's your advice to those people that feel like they just are so stuck and can't even do things that they want to do during that time period?
Good question.
Mark, do you get to do things you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I do like. I would say like my situation is a perfect storm of terribleness. So like I also need a new house with more space, and we need another vehicle that's larger. So like I already know that like there's gonna be some increasing expenses as well. That's gonna eat into some of that free cash flow. When it actually comes free. But you're saying like right now, I will admit that I feel like because we figured out a way to make it work this year, like already next year, we're going to get a lot of personal stuff back. Just knowing that incomes are going to go up or planning on incomes going up. It'll feel a lot better just in 1 year.
Yeah.
So you're probably talking about like, if you can get it to work in the first year that it's really tough, it's going to just get easier right away. You're going to get some personal life back. And then the reality is that, and I said this like last year, probably the year before that with Enzo, but I was planning on not being able to golf as much. That's my big personal thing, right? I ended up golfing more last year in the year than I ever had in any year prior with a kid. Now, I do think that's going to change this year. It just seems like completely impossible to commit to playing, like doing that as much. So scaling back a little bit and just being realistic with it and like, okay, who gives a crap? It's 1 year. Right. It's literally 1 year that I am going to be able to golf once or twice a week, maybe instead of 3 to 4 times a week. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. And there's no way around it. Like this is a period of sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes. Yeah.
And not to mention, dude, like it's not, that's, okay, if I'm giving up 1 round a week, let's say, of golf, it's not like I don't want to be home. Like people, when you're talking about this with people who don't have kids, they really don't understand like it. And it's like you get that awkward feeling as a guy saying like, I actually don't want to be with you. I want to be home with the kids or whatever, or going to the zoo or whatever it is, right? So it's not like a full-blown punishment.
Right, okay.
But I think something that we've talked about on this podcast a lot and other episodes about like the Max Your Dash episodes where we preached about how important it is to be intentional. It's even more important here because when you're in Mark's shoes and it's just chaos, like days fly by, weeks fly by, months fly by, years fly by, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, how did we get here? It's even more important today for you or for anyone that's in the thick of it to be intentionally planning what you're going to do for fun. And maybe it's not, you can't go to Disney World and spend 10 grand or whatever on a trip like that, but there's things you can do that are enjoyable, that maybe are lower expense things. But if you don't plan these things out, you're even less likely to do anything because your life.
You have to be more intentional. Yeah. You said that. It is still a period of sacrifice.
It's a period of sacrifice, but it doesn't have to be crappy all the time. I was just last night, so our son is not sleeping well. He just hit like a 2-year sleep regression. I was talking to a client and friend who's got a couple kids, and her advice was great, actually. She said, it's not like there's no secret sauce to getting your kid to all of a sudden start sleeping better. What you need to be thinking about is what are you doing as a parent to stay sane and withstand it? And she was talking about how they hire a babysitter every single week. It's on their schedule every single week where the babysitter comes in for one night a week to put their kids to bed, whether it takes till 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock to put the kids to bed so that the parents can go out and just have a dinner one night a week.
Nice, yeah.
That's intentional.
Being intentional.
So that every week you're doing something for you to be happy. Now, maybe it's not that. What is it that you're going to do? Is it, you're going to be a member at the zoo and you're going to make sure you hit that every 2 weeks? I don't know. Yeah. But you got to have something that you're actually planning for yourself, or else you're
on that treadmill.
You could potentially be, what's the opposite of maxing your dash?
Oh, it's minimizing
subtracting your dash.
Yep.
Minimizing your dash.
Minimizing your dash.
If you're not planning, you're not really doing it the way that we
So what's your checklist, I guess, for people right now? Because this scenario is great. And this just assumes someone is, the only thing they're doing during this time is paying their bills and still putting money into a 401k.
6% of their 401k.
Yep. So also, wait, real quick too, I wanted to touch on this. Is this like a big thing? Do you guys think I feel like a lot of people should not be right now. You should never do this, but comparing your situation to someone else. Because I hear this so many times where they're like, oh, they just got a house. I feel like we're behind, or they're doing this.
We should do a whole episode
and we're not
on
that
status games and how it.
Yeah, but I feel like it's so powerful for people in your guys' shoes, because it's all about like, okay, this couple they're doing this, and this, and we're not there yet, or doing that. Yeah. And I feel like that'll F up your mental, and then in turn your financial plan as well. Right. Because I see it so many times, like this person's buying a house or they have a kid. I feel like I got to catch up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a disaster recipe for finances, because then you make bad decisions and then you're stuck with them.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's a real thing. And that, again, it's that we should do a whole episode on status games and how it can mess up your financial plan.
Yep.
But my response to that, or advice to that, would be like, this is why we talk, and some people might roll their eyes when we talk about max your dash and planning, and you have to be clear on what actually brings you joy.
Yeah.
Because are you really going to be that much happier with an upgrade in your house, but a $2,000 increase in your budget?
Yeah.
And you feel like you're grinding another 20 years? Or is it better to be patient, save more money, feel more financially secure, and then do it? Maybe it takes you 4 more years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nicole and I have been having this conversation a lot about, because the way our house is set up, it's kind of weird if we have another kid. And so, similar to Mark, we're going to need a new house someday.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep having the conversation about, like, we would rather wait 5 years and feel like we're in a great financial place to do it than rush to do it because, and again, like you said, you see your friends doing it and you feel
like you're behind.
That FOMO feeling or feeling behind it.
Mm-hmm. So and this is without seeing someone's specific situation, but give a kind of short financial checklist of what people should be having in place or doing during this time period of the 30s and 40s growing a young family. So in my mind, it's things like make sure you're contributing to the 401k, maximizing whatever match that is, budgeting. These are obviously very broad things. Tracking your cash flow, maybe some life insurance in place. But I feel like maybe people think like they should be doing more than they have to, because this shows it. This is just putting money into your 401k, you wait, and then you just repurpose those dollars.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you think the financial checklist is for those people in their 30s and 40s they have to have in place while they're getting through this period?
You want to start?
Yeah, I think that you've got to be crazy about your budget right now.
Yep.
Like you have to really be on top of it. And how good of a position would you how nice would it be that before you even started to have the kids, you were already really good at this?
Yeah.
So like, this is for the person who's thinking about that someday. Like it's going to come sooner than you, like, dude, Carmela's already almost a month old. It's going to come really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so getting those habits in place beforehand, but if not, like, learn how to do them now.
Yeah.
I think that'd be the biggest thing.
What will someone need to do though, where they should then feel confident moving forward in this time period?
Have an emergency fund.
Have an emergency fund.
Be in a habit of doing the monthly finance meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that came to me when you asked that question is the monthly finance meeting like literally solves so many things if you actually do it. But having both spouses on the same page with your finances, like you can have one spouse that kind of takes control of a lot of things in the finances, but you both have to understand the impacts of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've got a spouse that doesn't really understand what's happening with all the money and continues to spend as if they didn't have kids, and then you have kids, and then that's where disasters can happen, and that's where you could see a lot of fights happening between couples, and that's not good either. So like having a system for tracking your budget, measuring, and communicating between both spouses is really important, and that's literally what the monthly finance meeting is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I would say, like, from a mental standpoint, you brought up the one point: stop comparing yourself to other people and what they're doing, but then keep your eyes on the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay that things are going to be on pause a little bit here. Like 3 years or whatever is just not that long.
Right.
You know,
it's going to fly by.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But having that vision can get
which
you
is a
through
plan.
Have
the plan.
The crappy times where it. Look, I feel bad for there's people out there literally right now that like they can't even order a pizza on a Friday night because it's now $60 to feed your family and more. What's a sheet pizza?
I get pizza every
2 dozen
Friday, and
wings
with delivery, it's $30 for one person. For
$30 for one.
Yeah, it's just a large pizza for delivery, tip, everything.
What do you think Mark's going to be ordering for
$80 to
Carmela,
$100?
Enzo, Mark, and Lindsay like in a year or two? What do you think that order?
When like he's actually like, when they're really eating.
when they're eating
Your bill's
pizza?
$100.
Oh yeah. I mean, you really can't leave your house without spending $100 anymore anyway.
Yeah,
So
you can't. But it sucks. But so having the vision that this is a temporary thing and you have a plan, you actually feel like you have a plan that's going to get you to the other side, gets you through that grind.
It does.
So having an advisor where you review that like as much as you want to. You want to come talk to me every month about this? We'll do it. But if you check in on it every 6 months or so, and then it just gives you peace of mind knowing like, okay, we're gonna be fine. This sucks, but we're gonna get through it eventually.
I think there's other like learnings, I guess, over the past couple of years that not that I would like necessarily go back and do things differently, but whatever your kids will remember from their first 5 years of life, it's definitely not going to be the toys.
Yeah.
Like, so instead of getting the $150 Paw Patrol tower, like
That's a thing.
what can you do? What kind of time can you spend?
Patrol.
Like literally the time
Think
doing
about-
stuff with them. Like
think
if you
about-
take them to a park for an hour every other day.
I saw a video of Mark riding a toy horse in his living room. They love that. Mark's like,
No, this is a great point though that you bring up because again, it's a war on your wallet
Yeah.
and
war on your wallet.
bringing up the status game stuff. Like think about when Enzo's playing baseball and little Jimmy over here's got the nicest cleats and the nicest bats and the nicest gloves, and you're gonna be like, dude, you're not even.
No, Mark is gonna be like,
You can't even catch a fly ball, and you want.
I would rather spend money on that stuff though. I really would than the
But you get my
toys.
point,
That,
though.
yeah.
You get my
Yeah.
point. Like stuff that's gonna become clutter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
Yep.
What are we
Exactly.
doing?
I mean, dude,
Every
they
dollar
sit
counts right
dormant.
now.
You know they sit dormant. Like the kid will play with one thing.
Well, yeah, and think about how many gifts you're gonna get that people get you toys.
So
you play with that xylophone I got him.
What?
Does he play with that xylophone
I
I got him?
probably did play with it. Yes. You
Yeah.
did yeah. We sent you videos. Of
Yeah.
it. But when's the last time you played with it? That's the better question.
Yeah, where is that
right?
thing sit?
Like, it's somewhere in amongst 1,000 different toys. But so quick story: we have not given Enzo anything for his birthday. He came downstairs on his birthday morning with a bag of ring pops, holding 5.
Does he know it's his
helium-inflated-
birthday or no?
Probably not. That's
Okay.
the point, kind of. So there's like 5 helium-inflated balloons tied to it, right? Dude, the kid was so pumped about these freaking balloons.
Yeah, Grayson, same
Like-
thing happened with him.
What? So we have actually had the conversation for when we're having like a family party at the end of the month. Should we even get him anything? We know he's getting a trampoline. We know he's getting this like outdoor kitchen thing.
Yeah.
Why the hell would I get him anything else? He was so pumped about the balloons that cost $5.
Right.
Like anything else is a waste. At least I can pop these things and get rid of them.
Yeah.
Like versus buying another
Yeah, it
thing
is
that's
true.
gonna sit
It
there.
is true. But again, it's like
Don't you
hard.
feel that urge to like spoil
Yes.
your kid though?
Yeah,
It's
you
a
want to
real
see him
thing.
open presents. You want
I
to
wanna
be
see
the
that
one doing
joy
it.
in their
Yeah.
face, and it is a real thing, and it's hard. But you bring up a great point, and I was literally thinking about this podcast when I was down in Florida because we were in this hilarious conversation about. I don't even want to explain what it was, but it was on this topic of like buying things that are really expensive for your kids that just add zero value to their life. And I was thinking about this episode because I think a rule of thumb we should all, when it comes to spending just in general, remember we talked about like the flowchart t-shirts, like,
Yep.
So one of the questions should be, is this going to be Clutter in 3 to 5 years? Because if it is,
3 to 5
why are you
months
buying
is a
it?
better time frame.
Sure,
Right.
but let's say whatever. Like, and when you start to think about it, if you were being honest with yourself, like, is this going to just be sitting somewhere on a shelf in 3 years? Like, what is really the point?
Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts? And I don't want to like piss on any of our viewers off, like getting your kid an iPad and just let them play Fruit Ninja on that for 5 hours. Do either of your kids have iPads they just crush?
No, but I'm sure they would work.
Yeah, well, that stuff is immersive.
Yeah.
And kids are, I mean, you see it,
Curious.
like I throw on some dinosaur show on TV.
Aren't they always like trying to grab your phone and stuff too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like it makes you feel terrible when they start, like when you've been on your phone for an hour and then all of a sudden you like see your kid looked at you, or he's like watching you do it, and then like they pick up their phone and like, hello, or, you know, it's like, wow, I gotta stop doing this. And like you guys pick on me about the do not disturb thing,
Right.
but it's like the best thing that I've ever done.
The good news is we can take away is none of us are Adam.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like they're different animals. They're so good at it. They're so good at managing like the chaos of kids.
We don't know what happens behind those doors.
True, but from the outside looking in, I feel like from the outside looking in, they've got it. They've got it figured out.
Yeah, it does. It looks like they're the married.
Dude, I went to the zoo. Zoo crew went together. It was awesome. Like literally, it was awesome. Alessi was being the leader, and it helped Enzo feel more. I'm telling you, then,
Guys, I'm a single dad right now. My wife is on a business trip, and I feel like I'm kind of crushing it.
Where's your kid?
He's at daycare right now.
Okay, before we wrap up, I wanted to get your guys' little tidbit on this. I was gonna bring this up. Mark kind of did. Okay, 30s and 40s is what you got to do. Now, this is if you're listening to this and you're in your 20s, what can you do to get prepared for this?
Well, I was thinking about this a minute ago because Mark was kind of referencing that. When people, like that attitude of like, you don't want, like, what does my dad know? Or like, when we try to tell people that this stuff is coming and you have that attitude of like,
Yeah, tell me.
I'll just deal. Like, dude, it comes back to the Clutter thing. Like, save your money. Just save your freaking money because you are going to think yourself in 5 to 10 years having that nest egg.
Yeah.
When things get inevitably challenging.
Yeah. So, what's your advice?
Like
to me?
how cool would it be if in you're the person, you are literally the person, but you're not gonna have kids. But anyway,
or Jeff?
No, he's going to have kids eventually.
Jeff's only like 6 months younger than me. We can't keep just because he looks young.
Serious?
He's within a year. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Do you guys know Nick's older than me?
No.
He is.
He's 35, dude.
Shout out Nick.
Yeah.
Shut up, Nick.
That is crazy. So I'm fine. I got a lot of time.
So imagine you are.
Can I take the lead on this?
Yeah.
I think that you need to have a net worth goal
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you're working toward. Like, this is what I want my balance sheet to look like when I'm 30 or when I'm 35.
Yeah, before you're ready to be able to
Imagine
do that
putting yourself in the spot that you can actually afford to stop saving and investing for 5 years
right.
ahead of time.
You got to
And
make
then-
up for it.
Right.
Yeah, you're making up for it now for your future
Right.
self. That's
Right.
in
Get ahead. Get really good at
What's daycare
budgeting.
going to cost in 5 years?
Dude, I mean that is actually like a annoying thing. Like I know that it's $3,200 this year. It's probably going to be $3,300 next year.
Yeah.
And 34, then 35. And am I going to finish off daycare at $4,000 a month? It makes me sick to even think about that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to like figure out the value because I will say, as much as I complain about it, he's learned a ton. So
Yeah,
it's
daycare is,
and I don't want to be responsible for that.
Yeah.
So if you're in your 20s, you can get your shit together.
Yeah.
And
have
this
a
can be
net worth target, like
Yeah.
at different milestones. This is what I want my balance sheet to look like when I'm 25, when I'm 30, when I'm 35, when I'm 40, and then have a plan to do it. And then, if you have an advisor, you should be meeting with to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Now, if we want to get into the reality of it being possible, that's probably a different conversation because if you're 24, 25 years old and you're like, all right, I want to buy a house, but I got student loans. I think I want to have kids someday. I got a vehicle payment. Like, can you really even get that far ahead in today's world? I feel like we really, this is out of our control, but we need stagflation for
I also think you should have a net worth goal, but you should also have an income goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like you should know what you want. What does your future budget look like? And what do you need your income to be when you get there to have the same disposable income that you're used to?
Yeah.
And
because
if you have a goal that you want your income to be X in 5 years, and then you literally meet with your advisor, twice a year, and that gets like you always are talking about it. How much more likely are you to hit that goal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most people are just cruising through life, and then they end up at points, and they have regrets. Like, oh man, if I just done this a little differently a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough to not live in the now. It really is. I'm guilty.
I'm guilty of it.
I'm guilty.
I've lived in the now for a while.
For the whole time for me.
The other good news is that you also can still be okay.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna be fine.
Yeah,
you're gonna be
fine. That is the nice thing. Is like when I look at all this and it sucks and like things, it's tight to manage. You can't just like, for lack of better words, you can't just screw around. I don't know what we're allowed to say, but it's like not that I don't need that much more. That's the nice thing. Like if I grow my income by 20% over the next 2 years, that's more than enough to give me back. Like, but I was like, do I really even have the time to spend it? On the things that I was doing before. Like, it's just weird. It's a weird spot. So I don't know. It's a lot of sticker shock for me right now.
I think we cover a lot of good points here.
Yeah, any closing statements?
Nate will still say, have all the kids you want. Tucker Carlson came out and he's like, my advice to everyone, have as many kids as you can, get in and over your head, do everything. I don't know.
What was is there like a end point to
He's
that?
saying that'll make you like a more well-rounded person.
Oh, probably. Yeah, I think that like as hard as and challenging as it is, and like there's times where you're just like, why the fuck did I do this? They also provide you with a happiness that you can't get any other way.
Yeah.
So it's
happiness comes from the struggle. You're not gonna be happy if life's easy your whole life.
Yeah, you implode.
All right.
Enjoy the journey.
All good?
We're good.
Thank you guys for listening, watching the Max Your Dash podcast. We will catch you in the next one.
Securities offered through Securities America Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Security America Advisors Inc. Dash Capital Advisors and Securities America are separate entities.